Welcome to the Religiously Offensive Podcast.
So, I feel like I haven't seen you guys in at least 3 hours.
Ages.
Yeah, last time we did a podcast, I think I wore the same shirt.
Yeah, wow.
Wild.
It's funny.
Did you guys all change?
Works up. Not like that.
What?
I don't know. What?
I just got a little cold.
It's
jacket on.
It's the
Don't
winter
look at me.
season.
It's the Lakers.
It's a throwback episode.
Luke kind of dipped his toes in the water and took him out.
I get a half. I wear the half hoodie.
Half
The
hoodie.
thing I'm trying to start in the office.
Can you
should
also
make it-
bring
you should
back
crop
the tie the hoodie around your waist?
I can't get on board with that.
Yeah?
The hoodie around the waist, I'm out.
What's better is the flannel around the waist.
That is better, I guess.
I mean, it's pretty much back.
It's
Yeah?
But it's about the rest of your
I love
attire.
that.
I'm wearing gym shorts. I'm not tying anything around my waist.
Yeah, I'm strictly comfort at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
We
been-
also have the luxury to
Been
not have a
comfortable
strict
forever.
code. Yeah, every now and then it's nice to put on a pair of slacks, you know, but
slacks. I don't say that word.
dressy pants. But
Slacks.
yeah, even then, it's just hilarious. I'm like, if I can't go in like, you
The
know,
word slacks makes it seem like it's comfortable. I think I need to get some new
Slacks.
dress clothes, some stuff that just feels more comfortable than because I always dread putting on dress clothes.
Well,
I dread it so much.
well, nowadays,
I count down the days when I know I have a meeting I need to dress up
Yeah, it
for.
sucks.
It's awful.
Well, I think I need to invest in a couple of good pairs of like Fabletics. I think came out with like dress pants, but they're basically
yeah, it's like elastic and
they're basically
Athletics
just
always
like
does crazy deals during the year too, like 70% off for your order.
if they had some like a blazer
Lululemons.
and
You
a
have to,
suit
like,
that was like super
get that subscription
stretchy.
though.
so you just got my
But you get
problem
the
is
subscription, order your stuff,
cancel it immediately.
It. Yeah.
They got my brother on that one.
Subscriptions make
You
me
just got to
nervous.
set that alarm to cancel.
They make me
Yeah.
nervous.
Set that subscriptions make you nervous.
I used to be so scared to commit.
See,
Now you're married.
I used to
You got
be all
problems with
about
I was more willing to commit to marriage than I
Start with
was a
Netflix, bro.
subscription.
Just like, yeah,
It's
just
funny.
I'm so
Even like a
scared of
little
commitment.
Netflix when
Will
it was
you marry me?
$5.
No, I couldn't.
But
I don't know whose Netflix account I have.
That's hilarious. You're that guy.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
most people are that guy. I would say.
There's probably only
there's
a
a lot
few
of
the
people that
other
use
side.
my account.
yeah, I barely use. I did get into Grey's Anatomy because I never watched it. And there's a lot of episodes there, but
Yeah, but
wouldn't really recommend, honestly.
we talk about subscriptions. I used to be like when auto pay was started to become a big thing, like with like bills and stuff, like car payments. I just got so nervous. I was like,
Yeah.
you're just gonna take money from my account.
Now it's like,
No, it's
I
hilarious.
need auto
I want to know when it comes out.
Are your guys'
Yeah.
parents
You
like
have
the
fresh
same
coffee?
way?
I don't have fresh coffee. I have microwaved coffee. There's some coffee over there if you want to.
It is over there? The pot was empty
a
whenever
little-
I took a peek.
Oh,
the pot was empty.
Was that
I
you?
don't know.
Pot was empty.
I took a little, but there was some left.
Little? There was some.
There was
A
definitely
little.
enough for
Little,
another cup
some.
or two.
These are all very
On the size of your cup.
indescript words we're using.
Thought so.
I took a little.
Lisa, may I have some more?
I'm gonna work on our British slang and just pepper it in there. The
11.
pods.
We could definitely offend some people there. Our horrible British accents.
If you're listening, you should go back and re-listen to some podcasts and try and listen to me and Gabby secretly talking to each other during conversations.
Really?
We say things like,
We're like, I heard you.
and we
Oh.
like make eye contact.
that.
People can go back and look for little Easter eggs.
Little Easter eggs, yeah.
How neat. Get that view
So
count up.
thoughtful.
Keep that, yeah. See if you can find them all.
That's funny.
The journey begins.
Pokemon. Yeah. Did we decide that there was a Pokemon that looked like a sperm? Is that what we talked about before?
I don't think so.
Well, there's ones that are like little worms,
Yeah.
like a snake. Yeah, there's a couple
No,
of them.
maybe it was a name that was something close.
Justin is a
Zygote.
Pokemon master.
That's it. Zygote. It sounded
Yeah.
like a Pokemon.
Justin has indeed caught them all.
I wish I could say that.
You're closer
know,
than most, my friend.
My main beef with Pokemon when it first came out, the video game, was you could only get, unless you were like, unless mom and dad were hooking it up, like, and you had like you needed people to trade with to get like certain Pokemon. Like they came out the game and the theme is gotta catch them all, and it's impossible to catch them all.
You have to trade.
That's right.
It's ruthless. It's messed up. You need people to trade with you.
You could have probably had them all originally when the first set came out. There was potential for you to probably get them all.
So the kids.
Then since then, there's
all damn privileged boys.
so many different. You'll never get them all.
There's an infinite
There
amount.
can't be a
I'm
guy.
talking base set.
You think there's a guy that has them all?
Oh,
Gotta
for
be.
sure. Well, because all you need to do really is you just need 2 different Game Boys, and then you can play one
talking
game,
about the game.
to trade it.
Oh, the game, yeah.
Yeah, I never really did the card game actually very much. I was into
Those games
not many
are
Game Boy game though.
legendary.
Dude.
Oh, more people have Pokemon cards than people that know how to play.
That's probably true.
Every
Absolutely.
now and then I'll sit down on the emulator and just like relive my like
I would play that right
young
now.
years. I'm just like, oh, who do I start
I
with?
love playing old video games. You know what's annoying though? Now, like, because like if you're
So exciting.
you're an adult and now you have the resources where if that came out now, you could have done it.
Dude.
So what's annoying, right? So it's like it's not like okay, it's like my parents did what they could for like they provided me a great life, whatever. But I will say. I will say that
They blew it with Pokemon.
thing is, no, I'm an adult, and it's like I can buy things for myself, like, and it's not just on my birthday and Christmas. So,
Bro,
the problem is now. I wish with the resources I have, I wish I could go back when I was a kid and buy all the shit I wanted. You know what I mean? Like
time
I'm just
machines for 'em.
because now I go to like look at it. I'm like I could buy this, but it would be unexciting at this point in my life.
Yeah.
That is such a
You never know. It
profound
might
thought.
it might really just make you happy.
I'm
Make
just,
your heart
I'm
tingle.
just picturing
Might.
7-year-old Justin panicking about which Pokemon to start with.
Dude, you know, I always started with Bulbasaur just because I felt like he got no love.
That's
I was like, nobody wants the leaf one.
I was a
I
Squirtle
was like,
guy.
I'm gonna get the leaf one and beat everyone with him.
Squirtle was my guy.
I didn't play, so
Dude. I'm
I
sorry.
was big into Mario, Zelda, Halo.
Solid
I like
stuff.
that.
I mean, the first Halo came out when I was still, I think, in middle school.
Yeah.
Gab, did you play Pokemon?
No, I watched it though.
Oh, yeah. The
Solid.
show was great, too.
I might have caught
Would
a few
that also
of those.
classify as anime?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
so. I think so.
Crazy. I never picture myself an anime guy, and then like turns out 2 of my favorite shows are anime.
Have you ever seen that anime show on Netflix? I think Jaden Smith does like the voice for one of the main characters.
That's sweet. I have not seen it.
He seems like the anime type.
Yeah, it's not shocking necessarily.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
Christina asked me, she was like, do you ever get into anime? I'm like, I mean, I like Dragon Ball Z. She's like basically saying that she hates anime because like she hates the animation, right? She
Yeah.
Is that literally all it means?
What?
Anime.
Animation?
No, I'm saying she hates the type of anime. Like she
Right.
hates that
I don't know if
Japanese
that's what it
animation.
means.
I just remember Dragon Ball Z, where it's just like his levels are reading 9,000. And it's like when you go back and you go back and
was so good.
rewatch, bro.
That was Vegeta.
Just like my mind was
Vegeta.
Dude, how is this happening? Exactly. We would go back and just like binge it, and you realize like half the episode is just, oh, that's not possible. And you're just
It's like it cuts to one guy, cuts to the other guy, cuts to the other guy,
Yeah.
cuts to the other guy.
it's like a 5-minute episode.
No
and then
one
you just
moves.
drag it out.
No one moves.
No wonder,
It's
like-
just like they're just sitting there.
Oh, Justin. Thank you for that.
Dude, I remember watching and like it was just so frustrating because you're like, it felt like nothing was happening each episode, and now it just makes more sense when you go back. You're just like, wow.
That must be where that "it's not possible" came from on the golf course.
Yeah.
In just absolute disbelief.
We got to attach that
Yeah.
video to one of these.
Oh my gosh, it's so great. So we're gonna get into the content a little quicker. It's only 9 minutes in, but I feel like people would appreciate it. So today we're gonna talk about politics in the church and do they mix? Is it appropriate?
Naughty.
Boy.
Yeah, I mean, in a basic sense, largely, I do not believe they mix at all. But we will kind of get into that. What was I telling you to look up for this? I don't remember. Did I tell you to look up anything?
If you did, he didn't do it.
You didn't do it.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard because
Because I mean,
What do you?
so if politics shouldn't be in the church. Should the church be involved in politics?
isn't it the same thing?
Why don't you describe what you mean by politics?
This is one of those like all
Politics.
square-
So
Are we back to the squares and rectangles?
should we be telling people who to vote for in church? I mean, I'll take it to the extreme, right? So,
Personal,
like, if someone from the stage is like, "Hey, we really, and they basically get around to it, and they're basically telling you to vote for one candidate or another,
Oh boy.
right? So, I mean, yes, there are certain like fringe ideas and different things that that people like to discuss, right, in the church. So, not fringe, I guess hot topics is what I meant. So, things like abortion, gay marriage, like the whole the stuff about the critical race theory, all that stuff. You argue any of that in church, and people do. But is it basically the church's job to take an official position? Because you ever get people like, "Oh, what's the church's official position?" On this, which I think is stupid. Church should never have official position on anything.
That's not specifically just outlined in scripture.
Right.
Yeah, right. I mean, and it doesn't even like. It's just like, I think that's a trap people set for the church too. They want to corner them and say, "Hey, what's your official position on on abortion?" Right? And it's just like, well, now the church now like whoever answers that question is going to feel cornered.
Right.
And I think people do that on purpose, right, to make the church look bad. So I definitely feel for them in that regard. But when it comes down to it, and we get to election time, and basically, it's just the pastors just leveraging their position on the stage and saying, "Hey, we just feel like this is the best candidate to vote for," or however they bring it up.
Have y'all been a part of that? Has that happened to you? Really?
Yeah, that
nuts.
happened recently, last term. But
Wow.
aside from that, it's just politics, period, right? You don't even have to have a pastor that's doing that to you, right? Like telling you basically like, this is who you should vote for, without saying it or implying it.
Well, half of the problem in today's climate is just everything is so much more polarizing, where like before you can have disagreements with people, and that's fine and still be friends. But it's like, I feel like now more so than ever, it's like people on either side of the political aisle literally look at the other side and think it's not just like that, like my idea is better than your idea. It's literally like you're evil.
Right.
Because of the positions that you hold.
Right.
So that's the hard part, because it could go both ways, like getting into this
most
whole,
people aren't even willing to listen.
well,
to the
especially
other
with
side.
what we went through this last cycle with all the Trump stuff. It's like super polarizing.
Yeah.
Some people are just like, basically he's like the second coming of Jesus, and then some people are just like, he's the Antichrist.
Well, what I found interesting is that, and I think I covered
also
this
said
in one of the other
about Obama.
podcasts. Yeah, what I said on other podcasts is like when he first came out, before he won the primary, it was like, we need to get rid of this guy. Like, this guy's toxic. This guy's no good, including my parents. I mean, they hated him.
Yeah.
But now it's like, you know what I mean? It's just like, I mean, it's crazy how that stuff changes.
I'm just gonna say it like this: if I need brain surgery, I want the best surgeon. I don't care if he's a jerk. And I know that's totally off topic, but
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
not to plug anyone one way or the other.
I
but
would say
it's
Trump's
just too
not
emotional.
I
now.
wouldn't say Trump's a brain surgeon.
No. In the analogy,
Yeah,
if there's someone that's running,
Yeah, I mean, I get
And
that.
be a little rough on the
My
edges,
my
but-
thing is just like, this plays to, because the church is so political. Okay, and I understand that we could define what's politics. What does it mean when it's in the church? Because the church is so political, it's been easy to marginalize people in the church and marginalize Christians and call them all in one category, and just like, then all of a sudden that's free reign to call anyone anything that would be assimilated to a hardcore conservative. So it's just like, bigots, racist, all that stuff. Now that falls on the church's shoulders, because it's like it's like honestly, in the church there should be a healthy conversation and healthy like discourse, of different kinds of ideas.
right?
Unfortunately, that's not the case. Like a lot of times, like it's just like you said, it's just like you're just looked down on for having any kind of alternative viewpoint. And I mean, I think obviously that's toxic, but at the same time, it just makes it super easy to marginalize the church. Like I said, so
part of the challenge too is like our roots were like in the 4th century. They really married the New Testament, largely the church and the Roman government, with Constantine and all of that Council of Nicaea stuff. So it's like so many of our roots are based in this marriage to government where, you know, whether it's a power thing or influence. So we kind of tried to uncouple that, but it's tough when all the churches want to benefit from the 501c3 statuses and stuff like that. So you're kind of forced to marry the government in one respect if you want the financial breaks.
Yeah, and I would say the biggest, I mean, if you want to come down to it, the biggest issue that kind of comes up, like hot topic, is abortion, right? That's the biggest thing, I would say, that most people would say, well, I mean, just because this is kind of just the one thing that really pushes me to this side or that side. And I mean, I think that's, first of all, I never think one issue is enough to push anyone to one side I mean, that's just, yeah, there's a lot of things you could say about that. But, you know, you look at, okay, well, what could we say about, I mean, so when you look at the GOP as a whole and you say, okay, so if we take them as like the capitalist party, right? If you want to just go extremes, go capitalist party, communist party. You know, it says in, I think it's in Luke, those who want to get rich fall into a trap of ruin and destruction. I mean, essentially what it sums up is like, you know, Christ followers must choose between God and money. And I've said before how capitalism, it requires greed as fuel to run, right? So it's like, how come people, you know, sin is sin? Why do people weight so heavily things like abortion and stuff like that, but literally ignore anything as it relates to capitalism? I mean, because I think that hits home for a lot of people. It's easy for like some old, you know, man and woman who's been married forever, who are empty nesters, to be like, all right, well, I absolutely know abortion and this and that. But then at the same time, it's just like they've hoarded all this money so that they could have security for their future. Yeah. Right? So how do you reconcile that? Like, what's the, you know, how are we going to just say, okay, well, I've identified this as a sin, so we need to stop this and legislate against this. Yet at the same time, I'm absolutely for, you know, being greedy and getting what you can. And that's how the country, you know, that's what this country is founded on. And, you know, that's how it runs. Yeah. I mean, how are we okay with that? You know, I don't, and I'm not saying like, again, I like capitalism, but I'm being devil's advocate here. Right. So, I mean, what?
Devil's avocados.
Devil's avocado. I'm not going to steal Justin's thing.
I stole it from someone.
Trademark.
It's all right.
Trademark, JP.
Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, I just think about like drop Jesus in America 2022. And, you know, I think that's where a lot of times he's walking around, and it was a lot of the religious people would always try to ask him these questions to kind of try to back him in a corner. Yeah. And trick him. Things that, like, because he was a very, like, he wasn't trying to be political, but he was kind of created to be a political figure by a lot of the, you know, the culture of that day. So it's like, sure, there would be a lot of aspects, because when I think of the conservative capitalism type, it's more so big emphasis on personal responsibility. And then if you go more to the liberal side or like kind of socialist side, I guess it gets a little bit more into the corporate. There's a corporate responsibility, and that's kind of really high value for that. So the individual kind of sacrifices for the good of the whole, whatever. Challenge is there's good aspects to both systems, right? Yeah. Like Jesus 100% would have been all about the concept of personal responsibility, and not, like it says, if a man doesn't work, he shouldn't eat. And so it's like, obviously Jesus would be a very like hardworking individual and believing personal values, but we also see in his ministry, he'd have an incredibly high value for helping the disenfranchised or the, you know, the forgotten.
And the whole idea of bringing the tithe to the storehouse is a socialist kind of idea.
And Jesus was pretty anti-materialism, you know, he's pretty clear about it. So he wasn't, I mean, it says the Son of Man didn't even have a place to lay his head down at night. So
I think Jesus was politically centered. Hear that, everybody? Just saying, hot take.
Shout out Jesus.
Like meaning he wasn't on one side or the other.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it's just hard because it's not happening like all over the place. I'm sure most pastors kind of I would hope that you approach it with wisdom and humility, not like having the answers. And I think what you mentioned earlier, kind of talking about like I just feel like the church really, instead of taking like positions like that or like hard stances on certain things, just like empower your people to like have a real relationship where it's like certain things are black and white, right? In the Bible. Never okay to steal, never okay to murder, never okay to do certain things. There's other things, there's a lot of gray area. Where
Yeah,
it's just
that's my thing. Even if it's,
learn discernment.
even if it's those things. So I'll just use abortion as the example because it's the easiest one. We were talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
A lot of people, you could say, yeah, God outlined all these things that aren't okay. And abortion, a lot of people say that, oh, well, when do you define a life as a life, right? And they can get into those conversations. But outside of that, it's like, well, we can define life however we want. But at the same time, it's just like, it doesn't matter what the 10 Commandments say. If people don't ascribe to the Bible and the God that we believe in,
Right.
why are we holding them accountable to our book of law, right? I can think it's abhorrent and the worst thing ever to abort a baby, it past a certain time, right? And I could have that personal viewpoint. But why am I trying to get legislation passed to where it just prevents people doing that? Like, I mean, it sucks. Like, dude, I don't agree with it, right? Like, in most cases, there are definitely cases where I feel like it's appropriate, like, personally. I'm not a woman. I can't imagine going through that situation, right, as well. But the thing is, it's like, why? I mean, we're it's like we're fighting this battle. It's just like, I mean, I can't point to the book and prove to people why they should feel a certain way when it's just like they may not have that conviction because they don't know Christ. Like, why? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not saying abortion's okay. Like, right? Like, as a blanket, it's just fine anytime and whatever, right? But
Yeah.
you can never control people and stuff like, and it's just like, well, I mean, people are going to go do it. I mean, people are going to get it done. It's going to happen. I mean, like, granted, I get like tax dollars not going to it and stuff. And, there's stuff like that people don't agree with and they don't want their money going toward that. But then we also talked about like Jesus, basically like telling the people like, pay your taxes, right? Is essentially what he said. Give Caesar what's Caesar's. And in that way, in that time period, the Roman Empire was oppressing the Jews. So basically they're paying the Roman Empire to oppress their people.
Right.
Right. So, Jesus knew this, right? But he still said hey, pay your taxes, so it's like, we don't agree with everything the government does and the way they spend the money. And it could be for horrible things, but it's like, I don't know. I don't know if that gives us the right to just like dictate. And granted, we have voting rights. Fine. I guess I'm just annoyed at the system. I don't like that there's two candidates. I don't like that like we have to like put all of our issues that we believe in one bucket or the other, and it's just like whichever one holds the most of our issues. Like it's just so stupid.
That's what makes it dicey, because if we're called to choose people, then no matter where you fall on the scale of left or right, you're not choosing people because you're always leaving one side of it out, right? So it's like with the system of how you vote for people and based on things you believe in, there's always going to be disagreement. But it comes to a fault where you allow your political preference to overtake your call to love people. And that's where, like, I can't fathom how a pastor would justify telling his congregation who to vote for.
Well, it's tough because I mean,
I don't.
We saw a lot of it during the pandemic, where there's a lot of pressure from governments, and especially depending on where you lived, not being able to gather or to worship, right? So it's pretty clear. It's like it would go against the Constitution and just right to peaceably assemble, right to worship like any God you choose, stuff like that. So like we kind of saw this weird. Like, and this isn't like like for or against the shutdowns. This is just just talking about
I think we know where you stand.
the, well, I think it's pretty clear that Jesus said not to be afraid of sickness and disease, but that's fine. Either way, like we saw where there was this pressure from governments to come in and try to dictate the way or how or when we worshiped or whatever. You had certain people bringing in kind of more so political activists, and it just didn't, I'm sure it didn't happen a lot, but I saw plenty of videos where it's like pretty big name dudes at pretty big churches, and they've got
basically telling people. That,
so it's when it's a Republican activist or talking head coming in, it's like, well, he's not trying to promote people to be open minded. It's clearly this is what's happening, and we need to make a stand.
Clearly biased
because it's because
I would say if you're known as a person that's pushing the Republican Party or the Democrat Party first, then you're already in the wrong.
As a Christian,
as a Christian,
right? Yeah.
It's not always that they push it first; they just sneak it in there.
Well, the hard part is some of these guys get paid very well to do it.
Yeah.
So there's that challenge. But I think about kind of to the hot button abortion topic. Like I think we touched on it briefly, and we can talk a little bit more about it today if you guys want. But like the church abdicating some of its like roles in a community, where like imagine if the church had a really real presence in like some of these like more kind of like low, because just look at the statistics where you see a lot more of the abortions happening, stuff like that. Like what if the church had a real presence and girls knew like, hey, if you don't think you're up to raise a child, but you'd still want to have this baby, like we have, like imagine if the church just stepped up and just really took off with like adoption and stuff like that for girls who are like, I don't know if I can raise this kid. And so then they think that's their only choice. Or, and we talked it more in the sense of, if the church would have kind of walked out the way Jesus told we were supposed to be, kind of the social safety net, we wouldn't have half of the country looking at, these problems saying we need the government to solve all this.
No, I mean, it's just a lazy way to look at it. It's just like, all right, well, if we really believe that, an abortion just is like an easy way out. A lot of people just aren't thinking, would just try to get them to, just kind of understand what the decision they make. If they just decide to make the decision, they just make the decision. But the church does a horrible job at like having that plan. Like especially, that'd be crazy. That'd be that'd be really the church taking it head on. And that's like, hey, if you're just nervous about having a plan for this child, we can help with that. We can find a home or, whatever it is. And that's just an active approach, more so than just like telling people that it's bad, it shouldn't happen, we need to make laws against it.
Right.
Like with anything we've talked about, it's just kind of a life theme, and it's just like the way we are, and it's just like you tell us we can't do something, almost makes us want to do it more. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are going to find a way to do it anyway. They're just going to drive over to the next state, or you're going to have people, like you were saying before, have people like move to states where like they're more comfortable with like the positions they have on different laws and all this stuff. I'm like, that doesn't help anything. Mm-hmm. That separates us more. And so at one point, what, you just have like strictly red states and blue states, and like then like how does that bring anyone together?
Well, to me, it feels like we're kind of already there. Like you have some states that are very much so. Well, it's just the local.
That's how we like to draw it out for sure.
Local
there's rural
kind of
states and stuff that would be red, and then it really just
approach.
It's really big city versus small city.
Right.
Big city, you have a lot of people thinking the same way, and
a lot more progressive minded. I mean, you got your rural communities a lot more traditional.
Yeah.
And again, it's just part of that culture too. Like if you grew up out in the country and you're from a small town, and it's not real normal to have abortions, like for that specific topic, like it's for sure it's going to be huge. But then you look in major cities, and like that's maybe one of the saddest things now is that because when whether or not your stance on it, when they first like legalized it, like the whole point was like safe, legal, and rare, right? Yeah. Like it's the same, not the same, but a similar sense of like the drug conversation. It's like, well, if you legalize it, you're actually giving a better chance that it's actually going to be regulated and probably safer than like street version. That's probably a terrible example. But again, I think unfortunately, because it's so common, like most people, I'm sure they'll be ashamed of it probably, or it just hurts that they had to do that. But I think it's more or less an afterthought for a lot of young kids. Like I had an experience where, because I grew up super religious or Christian, it was just very, strict biblical morals kind of upbringing. And so my whole life, if you would ever ask me, I was like, yeah, pro-life, pro-life, pro-life. And then senior year, the girl I was dating at the time, and all of a sudden, she was a girl I lost my virginity to, and all of a sudden she's like 5 weeks late, and we're just like, oh my gosh, freaking out. I'm just like, I can't tell like what, like there's no chance. Yeah. And so it's like my worlds like collided, because I was just like, never in a million years would I thought I'd be in this position. And then until you're actually in it, you're just like, I couldn't think of anything to say except just like, look, this is impossible. I'll support whatever you choose to do. Yeah. And I would never even have thought I would entertained it until like you're in it, which is, I think the first thing we got to do is just stop standing on the sidelines and pointing at each other and just calling her evil for thinking like that's okay. Or it's like, put yourself in that person's shoes and
have compassion
first, at least. And, I think
it's easy for people to stick to their extreme convictions, third party.
And then we can get into the whole concept of like, if you're having like multiple abortions, it's like, okay.
Well, at one point it's recreational, and that's just.
I think like Luke brought up earlier, you can speak more to it, but we just don't value sex and monogamy, like the way that's outlined in scripture according to the creation of, Genesis account, all that stuff. Like I was listening to someone talk about it, and it's like, even though for the most part, most of us would be considered monogamous, like someone was talking about, it's like 50 years ago.
That was a different term.
Like, it's like you meet someone when you're young and it's like that person for life. Now we think monogamy is like, well, just one at a time.
Which is, was that a TED Talk?
I forget where it was. It was some like foreign lady.
Now
that's a different definition, isn't it?
The literal word changed definitions.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, so it's like, and I mean, shoot, I get it. Like I've had multiple girlfriends and stuff like that. Like it's just, that's just part of culture. But yeah, we just don't value things. So like the hard part is,
a friend and I had a conversation, like a Christian guy from the church had a conversation about this one day. It was just, it was like, can you imagine? Like, people in the Bible, like, he's like, I talked to my wife. It's like they have if I had multiple wives, one could just clean the house all day while the other one works. Bro, and then their wife was like, yeah, maybe I could get on board with that.
Oh my gosh!
And then it's like he was like the other way around. It's like if I had like a best friend or something like that, and I just like hang out with them all the time, because we're in this 3-way relationship. He's just like, I could probably do that.
See, that would be
it's just hilarious. Like, cause it's because like, it's cultural, right? I mean, it's just like polygamy would probably be more accepted if more people did it. It's just hilarious.
Seems messy.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
I heard a guy
navigate that, but
just talk through, cause he had experiences with being like polygamous or polyamorous or whatever the terminology is. And, it was fascinating because just kind of experiencing it through his experience and just his thoughts. And, fast forward now, he's in a monogamous relationship and he's super happy. He thinks he's, it's the one, whatever. But what he just talked about, how much he learned about himself through the process of trying to be in a polygamous type of relationship, where it's like, it sounds great, like to have, multiple partners or stuff. And it's like, you spend time with one, and you can't start to miss the other one, or, whatever. He was just talking about his examples with, his example with it. And, but the moment that like he's home on a Wednesday night and he's like, hey, you want to do something? She's like, nah, I'm going to go hang out with Steve. And you're just like, oh,
then you don't like it all
like
of a sudden.
It's just, well, right. All like right. It's cause it's funny. You really like break it down. And this could be just cause of power dynamics, but it's like, I don't know if there any time in history that like was common for women to have multiple husbands, Or maybe that's just because as the physically stronger, sex, we weren't really like, I don't know. We were typically the oppressor.
For everyone listening, we're not taking any position on any of this.
Yeah.
This is just purely just thought puke.
But it's interesting though, because it forced him to like have to really confront his genuine raw emotions with that stuff. Where most of us in, monogamous, like single relationships, I mean, why is therapy such a big thing now? It's because we're just not really good at being real and expressing our emotions, our thoughts in a healthy, like not emotional way where we actually feel safe. And it's like I love it. Like there's this guy I follow, Joe Dispenza, and he talks about like him and his wife have this thing where it's just like, all right, like you do realize you're in a rut. Okay. How long do you want to stay there? And do you want my help getting out? And it's like a genuine, real conversation. It's just like, what are you really upset about? And it's just such a, like, I don't know, I just feel like everything is so emotional now. And I can't do that. Like once things get emotional, I'm just like, I check out.
Yeah, I feel like we struggle enough as it is with just marriage. Sprinkle in another human.
It's kind of hard.
There's no way it makes it easier.
Yeah. So, Gabby, I'm curious, just being a woman, if a church went and like just take a hard stance on abortion, and you were attending, obviously, how would that hit? I mean, would it like you being?
Which most churches probably do.
A lot of them would probably say stuff from the stage, yeah, like once in a while. But anyway, I was just curious.
I wouldn't go back to that. I mean, I don't think that 50% of our country should be told like that they don't have a right to choose. Like, I mean, having birth is, I mean, life and death.
Yeah.
Like, so to not have that choice, you're not even like a citizen anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's interesting.
It's just tricky because like there's just the whole concept of, I feel like in wanting to be super understanding or compassionate, I feel like we totally just avoid the reality of like, okay, and I don't know the stats, but in a small amount of abortions, it could have been like there could have been rape or something at fault, right?
Sure.
And which is horrible, obviously. And I think the hardest part is as it's just becoming more socially acceptable, it's inevitably like removing consequence from like decisions. Where it's just like a lot of probably older traditional people will be like, okay, well, did you decide to have sex? Did you know this could happen? You made your bed, now you sleep in it, type of a thing. Where that's where a lot of people would lie. And I think also people can give the lazy response, the counterpoint to that it's just like, well, what about the rape example? And you're like, okay, obviously it's hard. Like, cause does that, I mean, in Jesus' mind, like thinking about the way that he feels about the innocent and the children, it's like, I can't imagine Jesus ever like, I think about the woman caught in adultery or whatever. He like first restores her, but then he tells her like, go on your way and sin no more, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And
I mean, he never
it would
says
be
anything
impossible.
about it.
Yeah. Cause it just wasn't
really
a thing
infer.
back then. So who knows?
People just go with the "you shall not murder" or whatever, and then they consider a life once the heart beats. I mean, that's what they kind of hang on.
Well, and one of the big things that people always go back to is like, if you kill a pregnant woman, you get double murder, you get double homicide. So it's like we consider it. So like we'll consider it
actually double homicide. Then?
So we'll consider it a life for that situation, and then. So it's, but again, it's just that impossible thing where it's like culturally we've moved so far away from just kind of a God-centric kind of a approach to life where
my thing is when
it's just tough.
When you talk about like, I feel like a common misconception with God and how he like commands and gives laws that it's like, you have to do this or else you'll be punished versus, hey, I'm giving you this for protection. So like if like what we talked about earlier, like, so God in his creation designed sex to be enjoyed by a married couple. We can see that as punishment. Like, come on, it's not that bad. We're just having fun, whatever. But if you use it according to how he's designed it, things like abortion don't happen. Things like rape, they're terrible, but they don't happen if it's
that's
used
every single person.
Yeah. This is a giant
theoretical.
Yeah. But that's the point of it. Like it's for protection, not for like you must do this or else. So yeah, you could see as we take his laws of protection and disregard them, how it can lead to terrible things like that. So
Yeah. I mean, it's personally one of those things where, I mean, I think there's a certain period of time you could probably define. I mean, me personally, again, I'm not my body, I'm not a woman, but like there's probably a certain period of time, like where if you find out, you can define it and whatever, if that's truly what you choose. Like, I'm not going to be the lord of your thoughts, right? I can't do that. You know, I can't force anyone to do anything. But then, you know, it's just, that, of course, that like that lady that goes and gets 9 abortions or whatever and brags about it, you know, she's just a piece of shit. Like, you know, you're not going to change her. And I think most people can see what's wrong with that.
I feel like she can be a piece of shit, but she should still have that right.
She should have a right to be a piece of shit.
Because if she doesn't, I mean, you're taking away their freedom. Like,
Don't they? I think they legit might do something if you've had like. Maybe I'm just totally making that.
No,
up.
but I'm
Let me
saying
look
at
it up.
that point, just get a freaking hysterectomy.
yeah,
Like,
no, for sure.
yeah. So, but I mean, yeah, no, and so that's my point. Yeah, she might be a piece of shit, but it's like, I mean, I can't, you know, we can't say like, so if we're like a Christ follower and we believe, you know, hey, the text says this and this is how I want to operate to please God, I'm not going to force that on someone else who's not a Christ follower, right? I mean, I can't do that, right? And I think people try to like make laws and legislate to where they could try to do that. And it's just like, well, I may think that decision's wrong, but I mean, should you still have that right? Like, yeah, probably. I mean, so, and the definitions get all weird between whatever and how long and full term and all that stuff. But
Well, then you get into some weird territory also now where the more and more we're growing technologically, where it's I don't know if we've legit started doing this yet, but you know, something where it's like your child, like we're pretty confident this child will be born with like whether it's Down syndrome or something like that. Like I mean, what do you even approach that? It's just like,
that's tough.
like how acceptable is that going to become when it's just like, okay, obviously
to do what?
if you were to like
Terminate the pregnancy.
abort more so because of like
when you go to the hospital, when you go to the hospital, not
Sort of
hospital,
like
when
a-
you go to the like OB doctor, right, which is the one that you check in with like during the pregnancy. I forget how many weeks it is. It's 12 or 14 weeks. I forget. But they will do a test to see if the kid has like Down syndrome or has a high chance of one of these, you know, type things, to where basically you can make the choice to abort the baby if you want, if you feel like it's going to just be a problem its whole life, right? I mean, we've just refused to get those tests, so we don't even get them.
Well, if
that'd
it's
be
someone that
just hard
genuinely
knowing it.
wants a child,
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to stop them from having that child.
Right. I don't think so either.
yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't have stopped us, so we just didn't get the test. But yeah, it's getting to that point where you can like see ahead of time, you know, what type of deformities or whatever would happen and stuff like that. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting thing. I mean, if birth control is at a place where like you could just guarantee you don't get pregnant until like, you know, hey, I'm deciding to have kids, and then like they hook something up to your brain or something, and then like, okay, you can have kids now. It's just like,
That'd be crazy.
yeah, that'd be nuts. But it wasn't in the Old Testament. It wasn't like all birth control looked down on though. Like any type of like,
Any sort of contraceptive?
even like wasting your seed was
I don't know. I'll
Like,
tell you right now though, we need to
basically
start.
the masturbation thing.
Oh,
Have
no.
you seen the verses on that?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's so funny.
I don't know, but that
It
is
like it
hilarious.
displeased God for people to like waste their seed. It was
Here's a political cause the church needs to get behind, or just people, is we need to start harvesting these stem cells not out of live fetuses or babies, but like aren't there a bunch in the placenta?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Yeah,
What are
people
we doing dude?
people freeze dry that and put it into pill form and take them
For what?
because they're full of stem cells. So
Dude,
it
that's
just
like Tony Robbins' whole new book is
to help you with health.
basically.
Some dudes will drink like breast milk.
That one's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
But like, but stem cells are like I remember.
That was interesting. Yeah,
I remember Kobe was
that
going.
may go into the fetish realm.
Yeah. I remember at times Kobe would be going overseas to get sort of like stem cell type treatments because we just, I don't know why in America we just don't do it. It's
Yeah,
got to,
well,
because Tony went to
did it.
Panama.
Yeah.
I think it's starting to become more common, but it's like they're
A lot of
so
people
hard
going
to
to
get a
that
hold of. They're
Panama
super
clinic.
expensive.
A lot of people going to that Panama clinic.
Dude, I'm just like, dude, this is like the secret. Like, what are we not? We all should be on this stuff.
I'm getting hot.
What does it do? What does it do for you?
It's basically just like embryonic, right? Like cells that are
so
like days old.
Stem cells, they're essentially, I mean, and I'll probably screw this up, so everyone do your own research. But they're basically in a form before they have a purpose or know what they're supposed to be doing. So if you can inject stem cells into a place of your body, for example, a lot of times like do it for bad knees or shoulders, and there's a plate like a muscle or a torn tendon or something like where to like your body needs extra support, they'll just take on that function naturally. People have done it intravenously. So like they'll do it through IV, like with a bag, and so that it goes through your blood, and basically just like the idea is that the cells will just go to wherever they're needed. And so that's kind of like, it's like Uno having a wild card. You know what I'm saying?
So could that come into play with like diseases? Like
Yeah,
For sure.
Yeah, but
so what the hell?
Yeah, I know.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. See,
But that's another one of those red tape things where like, cause some
like
people,
nuclear energy and stuff.
Yeah, some people are just
So
I
scared,
don't know
yeah, because
why
they don't want to
anyone
kill
would be against
babies.
it.
Like because of some whoever did this originally.
those Hollywood elites drinking
Yeah.
the baby blood.
Oh man. Ugh. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So,
Where are my QAnon people at?
oh man. That's
Let's link up. I'm just kidding.
okay. Justin's not QAnon. Just so you know,
Sleeper cell.
I don't need to be getting that.
What is
that kind of
happening?
heat.
I don't even know what they're talking about.
Okay, so another funny thing.
Justin,
I'm
just-
totally joking.
seizure
So
in his
another-
apartment about to happen.
Yeah, right. Another interesting thing that I don't know if it's necessarily politics getting into the church, but I saw a lot of places where different pastors or like self-proclaimed prophets basically had like prophecies about like the 2020 election and how it's like the Lord has told me that Trump will have a second term. And then now it's like, well, Trump is still going to have a second term. And like, there's a whole bunch of people who are just like convinced
Dude, it's
that,
these people that like say the world's ending.
I mean,
2012, here it's ending. It's
Well, they were-
the Mayan calendar.
they're convinced that somehow
They're
there's going
like,
to be some
oh wait,
coup.
no, it's this date now.
And they were going to somehow put Trump back.
No, it's
in
this date
office.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, when are we going to call these people out for being false prophets? I mean,
Well, a lot of them did kind of have to eat it, and then part of the challenge with that stuff for me is that like whenever like you see the prophets in the Old Testament coming out against like a government or like Elijah, like with the prophets of Baal, like kind of going up against, was it Ahab and Jezebel? Were those the kings at the time? I don't know. Not important. But like it was like the prophet's role wasn't just to like predict the future. It was like meant to like give a warning sign to the nation that like if you don't turn from your ways, like doom is coming. And so I don't know where it's like that ties in with like, you know, trying to predict the next political. But the hard part is like
predicting anything is a useless exercise. I mean, we're supposed to be ready at any point for anything. Like, right? Like, so it doesn't matter who's in office. It doesn't matter, you know, when you think the end of the world's going to be. It's almost like you could claim that it's not biblical to even try to guess the end of the world. Like, we're not supposed to know.
Yeah, I mean that's
know,
a whole
like, why are
different
you-
pod.
There's no way
It's like
to
the
know.
obsession with end times. It's like, dude, why do you even care? Like, are you trying to like time the game so you don't have to really try? And then it's like end times. All right, let's put on my big boy pants. It's time to
right.
really do it now.
I gotta repent at 11:47 p.m. right before the yeah. And so I don't get that. But getting back to the politics thing, you could say like, so what happens, I think a lot of it is, again, like I think it's a lot of this media that is training people in fear. Like I think it's really just instilling a lot of fear, especially, and it's easy to do with conservatives because I would say by definition, a lot of conservatives don't like change. Like, right. They like the kind of how things have been. There's a lot of issues with that. There's
slow
also
to accept
issues on the
change,
other
yeah.
side, right? So that's why kind of there's a tug of war. But when you tell them things are changing, we're bringing people over the border and busing them to all these cities, and we're doing this and that, and all of a sudden, like, all these like talking points that are fear based are being told to all these people who listen to like 3 hours a day of this conservative talk radio their whole lives. They listen to conservative news media wherever they get it. And not that there are a lot of people that just have like their head on their shoulders, like, and that you may not agree with what they say, but they're pretty fair. Like, I would say, I mean, Ben Shapiro, a lot of people hate him, but like, I think,
he's at least done his research.
No, he does his research.
He knows the other side.
He brings
well.
valid arguments, right? And like, he's polarizing, of course, because of his hard stance on a lot of issues. But, he's a good communicator. He's a good person. Like, it's like, and he's not sitting there trying to like fearmonger all the time. Now, granted, like, there are some talking points on, I would say, on that right wing side where it's, a lot of people are really just trying to scare people into voting their part for their party. And so what I'm saying, I said all that really to say that a lot of these pastors, in small churches and even big churches, are listening and consuming this type of media. So it's going to naturally come out on the stage, right? So they, in a sense, have just polarized themselves so much that it's just like they're just going to attract and repel what they've been trained to do. Like, right? They're training, to do that. So it's and I have seen like pastors that are kind of more like centered to like they're pretty like in tune with both sides and like just really kind of non-biased. It's rare. I wish it existed more. But it's like right now it's just the majority of Christians are kind of grouped on this one political ideology for the most part. And then everyone else kind of in the, like, it's just, I feel like there should, if Christians were to represent kind of like, what we see in culture, it's just like, we should be everywhere. It's like, we should have all kinds of thoughts. It should be okay to have thoughts. I think there's a lot of people in that group that have thoughts they don't want to talk about.
Right.
And I think they're scared to, just because people will just judge them or have a different view of them or get kicked out of the church or whatever, their extreme like fear would be.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it just feels like now it's essentially just a lesser of two evils. Like this two-party system is just, it's unfortunate because I don't, is there ever going to be kind of an independent person that comes out that somehow is able to keep up with the spending and these like war machines of like, have we ever elected someone that didn't come from one of those major parties?
No one's going to vote for them.
Well, that's what's annoying. You're just like, why do we just
get that on mic, Gabby?
Like, we just need.
Ain't nobody going to vote for them.
There you go.
Yeah, we just need like, I don't know, because it just feels like now it's like one party gets into power, and then the other party's entire goal is to make sure that they don't do anything, and then they just try to like look at him and call him like wicked, try to get the power back.
Yeah.
And then it just reverses. Like we've just.
Yeah.
There's
Who was that lady that ran last election?
Joe Jorgensen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was the other lady? I'm trying to remember. Who? I forget. I'm not gonna remember. She was on the
I liked
Democrat
her.
ticket though.
Yeah.
Joe.
She was
I
probably
like Joe. We tight.
Yeah, just it's too
Better
bad.
than
You
the current
wish
Joe.
Oh no, she did it.
our incredibly competent, fearless commander-in-chief.
And here comes Justin.
Here it comes.
I
No,
just like to give compliments.
here comes the roll. All right. This is I think my job is to like rein everyone in from their biases, right, Justin?
It's kind of like a sit.
It's
Regardless
like,
of
so I hear you, and Luke.
that's awesome.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
have you never experienced anyone like come up with like political stuff from the stage at all?
Our lead pastor is very much.
Have you been to
Not
like just this
influential.
church basically? Like since you've been saved, has it been just this church, or have you been to several churches?
Yeah, this is the one I've been a member of.
Okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I haven't been a member of it.
What were you saying about your lead pastor?
He takes the stance of people instead of a party. So it's kind of like one of those things where I feel like people just wish that he would say something.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like, what are you even trying to get? I don't know. To me, it's just a whole heart thing.
Well,
If you
the fact
choose
that
one-
you have because I think it's common because all these people that I was talking about are polarized. And
Yeah,
if they
and
go
they
to your
want
church,
it to be-
they want the pastor to validate that.
Yeah, and he just won't.
Yeah.
Because it's not
I like
biblical.
that. I
It's
like
just
that a lot. Yeah, I mean,
because the reality is Jesus died for Republicans and Democrats.
yeah, for sure.
So what are we talking about? You know?
Yeah, and I hate just how like when people talk about certain issues that not everyone may agree with, you just isolate people.
Yeah.
Like,
Also, the reality is Jesus died for the aborted
isolate.
baby and the woman who got the abortion. You know,
Yeah.
like Jesus died for people in Ukraine and soldiers in Russia.
Right.
Like, it's crazy when you start thinking about it in those, and that makes a lot of people.
every human.
Yeah. So when you put like names and faces on the word human, it's like you understand the gravity of how the call for us to love and reach everyone is meant to be everyone, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, and
I just won't die on a hill. I've taken the stance of I'm not. The only hill I'm going to die on is the one that Jesus built. So
Yeah.
that's just me. I mean,
No, that's good. I mean, that's a healthy perspective. I mean, because at that point, I didn't mean to say isolate. I meant to say you were excluding when you talk about one side or the other.
yeah. And I mean, I have opinions and I have thoughts, but I
Sure.
will never let that override my mission, right? So
Yeah. No, that's healthy. I think that's healthy.
Well, and it's kind of sad. I mean, I know of like Sean Foyt was he was a worship leader that was pretty big during the pandemic, and his whole thing was, I think it was called Let Us Worship. He just traveled from city to city and basically would put on just worship nights outside when we weren't really allowed to gather and stuff like that.
I love that.
And then I think before that, he actually tried to run for Congress, I believe, in California. And I don't think he won. But that's the sad, yeah. You just wish that, like, more like, well, you call them spiritual leaders or whatever. It's just like, if you want to influence this stuff, I mean, so maybe someone needs to put their money where their mouth is and just try to, if you have really strong convictions, you know, we don't really have anyone. I mean, do we have anyone in Congress that was like, I'm sure you could look up people that were like pastors or something that eventually made their way into politics. If you believe you can like help change, I bet it's pretty uncommon now. But I bet back in the day, there's probably a good amount.
Pretty loose definition.
Yeah.
Well, a
or even like
lot of people in Congress and you know, people that took those like politician type positions had full-time jobs. It was a limited term. Like it was like for a certain number of months, and then they went back to their jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's just an interesting system. I mean, that's a totally different conversation, but just, you know, the experiment that is the United States of America, I mean, people can debate, but I can't think of anywhere else I'd rather live. But you have a lot of, like you said, a lot of traditionalists that are like, this is, yeah.
I could.
Yeah, that's fair. But, I mean, again, kind of similar. You have people that are super opposed to change because they're just like, this is how we got here. And then it's okay, well, culture is different. The world's different. Does that mean we should revisit these things? And if so, who's the person that gets to decide, or what's the group of people that gets to decide what changes and what stays the same? It's kind of, I don't know.
Well, we're not going back and starting over at this point.
Right. Well, we're like, how many years? It was 1776?
76.
Yeah. So we're 250
Shout
years
out
almost,
Hamilton.
right?
Gabby,
That's
you
what's
with me
up.
on that?
So we're almost
There
like
you go.
250
Pardon me.
years into
Are
this
you
thing.
Edinburgh, sir?
And it's really interesting. Like when you look up like a lot of other civilizations that kind of, once you hit that like 200 to 300 year mark, where it's like you have like, 'cause at this point,
Are
like,
we
at least on the homeland, it's been relatively peaceful. Like obviously 9/11 was horrible, you know, but they usually say once you get past like 200, 300 years, like things just kind of start getting a little nutty, just because it's like, we've been living in peace for so long that like young people, like we kind of have the liberty to have like weird problems now, where like throughout most of history, you're literally just like fighting for your freedom.
In case anyone was wondering, and I know you were all wondering, in the year 2060, we will officially have been longer. Well, we would have existed longer as a country than we would have like from the time we were discovered when we became a country.
Nice.
You talking 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue?
Interesting, huh?
That is
Very interesting.
So we'll be alive,
Go us.
Yeah.
hopefully.
It's basically you get to that point where it's like I'm almost like that in from when I'm past that from when my wife and I met, but like we'll have been married for over half of our lives when we're like 42.
That is crazy.
That's sick.
Yeah. So it's just like
Cindy and I
basically
talk about
that.
too.
Yeah.
If we live to be 100,
crazy.
we'll be married for 75 years. That's my personal goal.
I think that's
You want to live to be 100?
Well, I think it'd be sick, but I also
Hopefully
just wanna
in good
die.
health.
I wanna
as
die-
long as you live well. It does, yeah.
I want to die at the same exact time as Sydney,
Christina said something like that the other day, and I was like,
or at least
I
like
guess-
right on each other's tail.
it's like I guess
Isn't
we could
that a
make
pretty
that
common thing?
I guess we could make that happen, but I probably frowned upon.
Yeah, I don't want to make it happen.
Like I think
Can we
it's
just
like
drive as fast as we can on the Pacific Coast Highway and just, hit some loose gravel?
I don't know if that's how I want to go out. Or just take it right off a
Got
cliff.
dark quick.
Well, it is. It's kind of a cliff. I don't know. Not
I
that
want
I'm
to. If
ever
I
gonna
make it
do
that long, man, I want to go in some crazy I'm not gonna say it. Never mind. Some wild out of body
Here's
kind
a
of
question: If you
experience.
could
and
find
just
out how
take
you
me right out.
died, would you want to know?
No,
Or if you could find out when?
When?
no to either. For sure not.
Good for
I
you.
don't
Because
think
if you
so.
knew it was this way, I mean, every time you did that,
I know.
You would
You're
avoid
just
doing
like-
that thing.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
like you drown. It's like, all right, I'm living on a mountain where there's no water.
yeah.
Or a car accident.
Yeah,
How do you get from A to B? And
Right. I
Yeah.
don't know when.
Well, it should be like screw cars.
Torture. I'm walking everywhere.
walking everywhere.
Hey, babe, I bought a bike. Don't ask questions.
And then the car hits you while you're on the bike. It's still a car accident.
That's why there's flight options to Tampa from here.
For all those people that know they're going to die in a car wreck.
Straight up, straight down.
That's funny.
That is wild.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So I think largely we're kind of on the same page on this one. Politics and church don't really mix well. Especially when, we really want to love and include everyone. It's just can't be doing that. Yeah. So any final thoughts? I mean, we'll kind of end this one right around an hour or
Wow, look at us.
look at us. We're getting better.
Yay.
And we did. Okay. So I took this off. I was wearing this shirt. I don't wear the same shirt 2 days in a row. We recorded 2 podcasts in one day.
Prove
All right.
it. Prove
Forgive us. We will post this on a separate day though. I gave it up. Sorry.
It's okay.
Just if we're ever wearing the same stuff, it's because we recorded multiple in one day.
We talk a lot.
We do, and we talked a lot after the last one. We talked like an hour over there too. So a lot of talking today. But
Y'all talk a lot.
thanks a lot, everyone, for listening. Appreciate you listening to all of our rambling and everything like that. Again, our goal here is just to express ideas, just have some creative thoughts and how we think about things, our experiences. And yeah, hopefully the website will be up soon again, in the next week. I'm giving myself a little more time. Sorry. But yeah, we will see you later.